I'm Alan Robarge, a relationship coach. Welcome to Improve Your Relationships, where I like to talk about attachment injuries and healing attachment trauma. And this video is a question and answer video, and it's going to be, the format is a little different from other videos I've ever done in that I am trying to interact with my screen and type some words, and I'm recording the screen, and so as a question comes up, as I explore a particular question, I'll be able to type some information, and hopefully that will be helpful. I also want to point out that the style that I'm taking here, it's a Q&A video, or that's the format. And in many ways, I'm taking some liberties in how my approach is going to be a little different. That quite honestly, I'm not an educator. I don't really have, definitive answers on certain things. We all have Google. We all can do a Google search, and if we want to come up with some information, we do some research. So it's not so much as me playing the role of offering some definitive answer. My skill set lies in offering process and participating in a process. So if there's a question that's asked, I know how to, I can engage that question to create some additional questions, to begin to explore some avenues or create perspective of where's that question coming from. So it's very possible that this approach that I'm taking is going to be more a question, asking more questions of where that might be coming from, beginning to apply, to think about how this question applies to our life, and then coming up with some application. So it might not even be a definitive answer or the best answer or the right answer. It's more going to be an application. So that's the approach that I'm taking. Also keep in mind that as for some disclaimer, in a sense, that so much of these coming up with information regarding relationships, it's very easy to answer questions with the phrase, "it depends." And that is pretty much, applies to for all of us, because we have our own unique history. It's based upon our maturity. It's based upon our family dynamics. It's based upon our core beliefs. What are our resources? What kind of resiliency do we have? And our overall level of maturity, and how that influences how we're in relationship. So keep in mind that any of the answers that come up here, you're in the driver's seat, and it's about you figuring out how it might be applicable to your life. Keep in mind that whatever the question is, it's very possible that the concluding answer is that it depends. The other thing to keep in mind is that it's very possible I don't know. And some of these questions are a bit complex because the nature of attachment injuries and attachment trauma, quite honestly, it's a complex subject. So we might end up with me concluding that I don't absolutely know, which will be an invitation for you to do some research. So let's jump in. The first question is, how do we recognize healthy attachment? And let me put that up here. How do we recognize healthy attachment? And also the question goes on to say, is there such a thing as healthy attachment in adulthood? Yes, there very much is. I even hear that, I don't know if that question was intended to have a kind of sadness, but to me that's a sad question, or it provokes some sadness in that perhaps the person asking it is even doubting if healthy attachment exists at all, period, for anybody. Yes, I love the phrase brief bright moments, and even for this example it applies a bit beyond the brief part. We can have bright moments. So we don't think of healthy attachment in terms of some absolute sustainable 24/7 experience. It's the same if we're starting to talk about healthy attachment, then it means that we're going to talk about secure attachment. And secure attachment is not a definitive, yes, you have arrived, you are secure, your partner is secure, your relationship is secure, done deal. Relationships are very dynamic, and they're fluid, and they're changing, and they're shifting, and based upon life circumstance, based upon stressors, based upon the challenges that come up out of nowhere, and usually these have to do with the major life challenge, like if someone loses their job, or there's some kind of health concern. If you have children, there's something going on where now there's a concern about the child. And all of these stressors then can impact how we show up in maintaining levels of secure attachment. We can benefit if we know our history is that we have a foundational template or a foundational skill set that is operating from a secure place. That's certainly going to benefit us. But secure attachment and healthy attachment is not necessarily something that is a permanent state of being, and that in a way insecure attachment and unhealthy attachment can get triggered, and it's a potential that gets activated just depending on how much our buttons get pushed, and depending on just how stressful life is, and to the degree that we are being challenged. And if we don't have support around whatever that challenge is, it might mean that we will resort to insecure attachment, or will resort to unhealthy behaviors, unhealthy attachment. And the ways that we recover more quickly is if we also have a history, if we have a partner where we have been practicing and participate in secure attachment. So that means we have set precedents to be able to return to secure attachment. So what I'm talking about is a flow process, and that attachment can be dynamic. And when I read the part of the question that says, well, is there such a thing as healthy attachment in adulthood, as I said, it does create some sadness for me that the person writing the question is really doubting if that's possible. So in the true spirit of encouragement, in the spirit of offering some kind of being a cheerleader to say that yes, it is possible, is yes, healthy attachment and secure attachment in adulthood are possible. Now the question is, how do we recognize this? How are we recognizing healthy attachment? And for me, the foundational, these are not necessarily in any order, but in a way I could say emotional responsiveness might be first. But the three that I'm going to share here might actually, depending on where you're at in any given moment of your relationship, they are all equally important. But emotional responsiveness is creating the ability for attunement, the result of emotional responsiveness is attunement. And let me play with the screen here real quick. Like I said, this is a bit new for me, and so I'm getting distracted and trying to talk and type at the same time. Because what I want to do is be able to write attunement, and I don't think it's going to fit. So maybe that works. Thanks for bearing with me as I figure this out. Healthy attachment. How do we recognize it? I like to think about emotional responsiveness, and the result of emotional responsiveness when two people are responding emotionally. So that's a skill. how do we recognize healthy attachment? How do we recognize secure attachment? Is that both people in the relationship are responding to each other emotionally. It's very easy to use an example of actors on a stage. Successful actors are able to be so in the present moment that they are relating. They're authentically relating. Certainly they have the script, they have the play, they, they're in character. But when it really works, when it's really good, what you're noticing is they're authentic interacting. You're noticing that they're able to organically respond. And it's in those moments when we would sit, when we say, well, that was such an incredible moment, and that it feels real as actors on the stage, because in fact it is real. In those, they are authentically interacting within the context of the play, within the context of the script, within the context of the character. But when you're viewing that, you know that there's an aliveness, that there's a presence. And when this happens, you're going to notice both of those actors are responding to each other, and they're connected. And it's that quality of connection that's the attunement. So how do we begin to define healthy attachment? How do we begin to recognize it? Is that we want to monitor both your own and your partner's ability for emotional responsiveness. And this includes the ability to initiate an emotional invitation through being vulnerable, through being intimate, through being attentive. And it's in that process of initiating that the partner will then respond, and it's in the responsiveness that we feel seen, known, heard, and understood. And this back and forth quality of give and take, of emotional responsiveness, creates attunement, what we call, emotional attunement. And that's what it means when someone says, I feel so connected to you. And the lack of attunement, the lack of emotional attunement, is oftentimes where certain couples who are struggling, when a couple is struggling, they're having a argument about usually one partner, one person in the partnership is saying, I need you to be more connected. I need you to connect more. And oftentimes that language, what they're saying is, I need to have this experience where we're both attuned to each other, and what that looks like is that we have a sensitivity of being able to respond. We're both emotionally responsive. So that's one key element that I like to think about as far as defining what is healthy attachment. The next one has to do with equal engagement. And these are going to overlap what I just talked about as far as emotional responsiveness and attunement. There's going to be a very subtlety when I explain equal engagement. So now we're really breaking it down. So not only do we have both partners need the skills, need the sensitivity, need the awareness to engage in emotional responsiveness in order to produce the attunement, the quality attunement. But we also want to look at, is there a equality of this level of engagement? Because if one partner is very lacking in engagement and at times distant, at times not participating, not sensitive to picking up emotional cues, not able to offer warmth, not able to offer, to have a intuitive sense when their partner needs a hug, have an intuitive sense when a partner needs some reassurance, have a intuitive sense of initiating, reaching for the partner. how we secure safety and trust, and how we continue to build and practice responsiveness is we reach for our partner, we notice our partner is reaching for us, and we respond back. And so healthy engagement, healthy relationship for healthy attachment, secure attachment, has a component of the quality engagement has to be somewhat equal. You have to fall within a reasonable range. And if you're noticing, and of course this is all subjective, I say reasonable range, and then someone, I can imagine then there's a listener right now who has a question, well, what the heck is a reasonable range? Well, that's where you have to empower yourself to define your own parameters. It slightly might be different for other people, but it's based upon the person you're in relationship and your own sense of what's reasonable to you. And a reasonable range means, is there overlap? Is there enough engagement where you're both in the same ballpark as far as the frequency that you both value? And if there is a discrepancy, what would mean it's unreasonable is that there's too much of an extreme and there's not an overlap. There's not this equality. And the extreme would mean that one partner wants emotional responsiveness at a certain frequency, let's say 3 times a day, let's say 3 to 5 times a day. And then we have another partner who is fine having emotional responsiveness every 3 to 5 days. So here we want a partner who would love to have emotional exchange, emotional presence, emotional awareness, offering, engaging in such a way that is building intimacy, usually has a component of vulnerability. And so this emotional responsiveness is happening 3 to 5 times throughout the day. And then you have another partner who it doesn't need it that frequently and is very much oriented towards connecting, that word connecting again, let's say every 3 to 5 days as opposed to 3 to 5 times during the day. If that's the case, we could say, well, there's a bit of an unreasonableness here. Like it's not going to be a reasonable amount of connection, because the one partner who wants more is going to feel completely undersatisfied, and then the other partner who wants less is going to feel infringed upon or somehow being faced with these demands. So you gotta assess your relationship with your partner and your skills and his or her skills, and see if there's overlap. So that's what I mean by reasonable, like that range of where there's an overlap. And if you think that you're both within the ballpark, then that's a good match. If you're extremely on, if there's a polarity going on here, then chances are you're not a good match. So the benefit or the outcome of having equal engagement is really what I'm calling balance. So for healthy attachment, we have emotional responsiveness, points us towards attunement. We have equal engagement, which points us to balance. And then the other thing that I think about with regards to what is healthy attachment is distress tolerance, which sounds like a clunky word or sounds a bit clinical as far as therapeutically clinical. But distress tolerance really gives us resource and gives us a range to respond. And that the truth is relationships trigger us. They bring on disappointment, and they bring on power struggles, and they bring on not getting our needs met, and all of that creates disappointment. And we need to have some tolerance around the distress of our disappointments. We need to have some tolerance, a range of tolerance. It's not a done deal quality, like, yes, I have tolerance, so, I'm good to go, check that box. we're more thinking of it in terms of an ongoing tolerance that we have to practice to continue to be skillful in how we work with the distress around disappointment, and how we work with the distress when our needs are not getting met, and how we work with the distress when we feel angry at our partner, and how we work with this distress when we're fearful. It could be an outside influence that is threatening the relationship, or it could be even the relationship ourselves, that we're fearful that our partner might be thinking of ending, or if especially if we have some kind of abandonment wound, and we're very quick to go to the place to think that, oh well, my relationship's going to end. And when that gets triggered, when that thought gets activated, we need to have some tolerance, some skill to work with the distress. And let me use that example again. Let's say that you have a sensitivity around being abandoned, a sensitivity that if the relationship ends, if your partner leaves, you're going to be devastated. And this might be something based upon your partner's actually doing something that contributes to triggering this, or you're completely making it up in your head. You're so sensitive, you're projecting onto your partner that there's some potential for him or her to leave, and then even the thought of that triggers your abandonment wound, which means now you have distress. And a skillful way of healthy relating and secure relating, having secure attachment, is about, it's not so much that you're not going to be triggered. That is sort of a given, because as human beings and relationships are so complicated, and all our feelings are mixed up in them, and the stakes are high, we're so vulnerable. There's it's risky to be vulnerable. So it's not so much getting rid of the fact that you're going to be triggered, or the fact that vulnerability at times will feel prickly and trigger some fear. It's about, do you have a tolerance to work with your own distress when this happens? Now, this doesn't mean that you only work with it in isolation and where it's something that you're grappling with behind the scenes. There is an aspect to that where at the end of the day you do have to grapple with it on your own. But we're not saying that you can't share that with your partner, but it's about how you share it. If you lead with the distress, if you're leading with your drama, if you're leading with your freak out, if you're leading with your neurosis, that's what I mean by saying you don't have distress tolerance when you are going to be very reactionary. So distress tolerance is the opposite of being reactionary. And as a result, if we're able to expand that skill and monitor our own ability to manage our distress, that in and of itself is a resource. And then it's also what I'm calling, it offers us range. We then have some choice of how to respond. And we more likely will err on the side of de-escalating a situation instead of escalating a situation. So this was my first response here to that question of how do we recognize healthy attachment. And if we're talking about healthy attachment, we're also simultaneously talking about secure attachment. And I say look at emotional responsiveness, look at equal engagement, and look at distress tolerance. And based upon the skill set, the skill level, and the ability to engage, or the ability to practice those skills, can point towards behaving in ways that are more securely attached, behaving in ways that are cultivating healthier or healthy attachment. So I hope this video was helpful. Please forgive me for some of the clunkiness as I was trying to type and do everything at the same time. More videos to come with this Q&A approach. And if you like the video, please subscribe to this YouTube channel And also, if you want to learn more about me, please go to my website, which is alanrobarge.com. And then lastly, if you want to talk to people, other like-minded folks like yourself, about these types of ideas, there is a new subscription membership site, a community that I'm creating of the same title called Improve Your Relationships. And that Improve Your Relationships, the community membership site, will be launching soon. If that interests you, you can get on a wait list or get on the pre-launch list so that I could send you an email when the doors are open and new people are joining that group, and I'd be happy to welcome you into that group. If that interests you, go to my website and you will be able to sign up on the list. Thank you so much. More Q&A to come. Talk to you next time. Bye.